Welcome to the 4th edition of Talkdeath, Eco-Burials and Human Composting with Katrina Spade and Joe Sehee.
So this comes from our blog, and it's also from Nicola Perrin. And she's interested in ways that we can think about conservation within the traditional landscape, if you will. So, she's asking, why are we not looking at greener ways to cremate by fire? If we're going to cremate by fire, are there ways that we can make it a greener process? Is anyone in North America trying to develop these? If either of you know, yeah, that's really her question.
Do you want me to take it, Katrina? I think we both probably have some thoughts on this. There are a couple of new modes out there. One I think still in research phase, Promessa, using liquid nitrogen and sound waves. There's also aquamation that's this water based cremation that renders. It reminded me of the Urban Death Project at first, because I had a conversation with people that wanted to use the remains, which are compostable somehow, rather than having them go into the sewage system as they now do. That's problematic for different reasons. But here's the thing to remember about cremation. We hired an environmental planning firm a number of years ago because we wanted to develop an offset program at the Green Burial Council. And the scientist that was working with us got back to us and said, we can do this, but it's hard to tell what retort. They burn more or less efficiently depending on a number of factors, how often they're used. But the person said, if we look at the average cremation, it's probably about a $5 offset to a carbon fund, which may mean something to someone, but it's not significant compared to what we're doing, heating and cooling our homes, driving our cars around. But it's perhaps what you do afterwards. So there's opportunities to use that scattering or burial at a cemetery that's facilitating conservation or restoration. There's some undersea reefs, some, not all, that actually are designed to create marine habitat. You don't like that idea. There are projects that probably can take cremated remains and do environmentally beneficial things that we'll see coming online. But I don't know of anything besides those two projects. Katrina, you're probably closer to this and have better insights than me.
No, I don't think so. But I think the two you mentioned, resumation or alkaline hydrolysis and Promessa, are like not fire-based. So, but those are interesting options as well, I think. And then there's certainly a fair amount of projects that are happening around more biodegradable urns or urns that can grow a tree, and I think all those things are really useful in terms of getting the conversation going. And I agree with you, Joe, that the amount of pollution caused by cremation is, to be perfectly honest, like I drive a car around, it's probably negligible in the long run. Mm-hmm. And but for me, in some ways, it's more about the fact that when we're incinerated, the potential that's left in our bodies, the nutrient potential, and again, it might not be that much by the time we die, when we're all old and small, but it's destroyed by the cremation process. And so I think for me, it's like, why wouldn't we want to give back what nutrients remain in our bodies if we can? It might, back to the earth that sustained us all our living lives. So even things like a biodegradable urn are still burying inert material that's actually really doesn't have nutrients in it anymore. So while I like those ideas because they kind of get at the environmental toll and they also are about nature and our connection to nature, I think that my preference is to have our bodies feed nature back.
That's really interesting. So if some people are wondering, oh, should I go into the ocean and I become a reef, or should I be planted in a biodegradable urn, it doesn't actually make that much of a difference. That's really important. I mean, it might, but you know what I mean.
So that's in the case of undersea reefs. Just because if you push a shopping cart in the water, you're creating marine habitat. Some of the reefs aren't engineered properly to withstand Category 4 storms, and there's issues around that. They may not be made of material that really function to create habitat. So there's things that some trust provider out there should be looking at. That's where we need to go with this. There's a lot of great ideas, but there's some stinkers out there too. And it's very difficult for the consumer to move past skepticism toward ideas that really are furthering legitimate environmental aims. That's one of the big goals of the Green Bureau Council, to be on the front line, helping the public know where to go because, the Federal Trade Commission in the U.S. anyway is telling us that 60 or 70% of environmental claims are empty or misleading, but they're not giving us any help, moving past that skepticism, suggesting that we have. That's what we have to figure out how to do, and it's a challenging task.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it's also, moving past these ideals that people build up, like being turned into a tree is something that we hear all the time, but, is it working? What's the feasibility? Is that tree going to be able to adapt into that environment? So there's a lot of other questions that come up that aren't necessarily being answered in the marketing material provided to the end user, essentially.
Mm-hmm.